Welcome back to the Chelsweets kitchen. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make my white chocolate ganache, which is what I use to make the color drips on all of my cakes. So some people like to use candy melts to also get the color drip effect, but for me I can always find white chocolate chips in my grocery store, but sometimes I struggle finding candy melts. So for me I think this is a little bit easier and more accessible. So I'm going to show you guys how to make it. It's super simple. You only have 2 real ingredients. I guess 3 if you include gel food coloring as an ingredient, but it's very similar to my regular chocolate ganache that I make, but the ratio of chocolate to heavy cream is slightly different. So here I'm using, like I just said, heavy cream, and it's really important that you use this and not half and half. Heavy cream has roughly 40% fat in it, and half and half actually has less than half the fat of that. So it's really important to get that smooth and creamy consistency. You really need heavy cream. I'm also going to be using white chocolate chips that I have here. These are just Nestle Toll House, but you could also use miniature white chocolate chips, which I actually recommend if you can find them. I think that Whole Foods carries Ghirardelli miniature white chocolate chips, and in my experience those actually melt the best. So if you live near a Whole Foods, I highly recommend trying those out. If not though, I think almost every grocery store has regular white chocolate chips, and that's what we're going to be using today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to be adding 3 parts white chocolate to 1 part heavy cream. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and open up my bag of white chocolate chips. And I'm going to be adding 1.5 cups of white chocolate into my heat-proof bowl. I'm then going to be adding just half a cup of heavy cream. This ratio can vary slightly depending on the type of white chocolate that you're using, but as you make it, you can adjust by adding slightly more white chocolate or slightly more heavy cream depending on if it's a little bit too thick or a little bit too thin. But as I'm going to explain later, another way that you can either make your drips a little bit thinner and run further down the cake or thicker, it depends on the temperature that the ganache is at when you drip it. So I actually have a full tutorial up on how to add drips to a cake, and that goes through all of those kind of technicalities. So if you have any questions about that and actually making drips on a cake, you can definitely check that out. The tutorial link for that is included below. So now that I have my heavy cream in my bowl, I'm just going to go ahead and gently shake it to submerge all of my white chocolate chips. So now I'm going to go ahead and heat this in the microwave in 30-second intervals, and I'm going to repeat that until all of the white chocolate is melted. Alright, so this is how my chocolate looks after my second session in the microwave. You can see that it's really starting to melt, so I'm going to just gently stir it. You don't want to overflow the bowl, but you can really see that it is starting to incorporate together. So we just want to gently stir that around until we think we've gotten it as incorporated as possible. And it's important that we don't overheat the white chocolate. You don't want to scorch it by heating it for too long in the microwave, so you really want to try to work it around as much as you can and help that heat from the bowl just melt everything possible. So you can really see our mixture is starting to come together. And at this point, I'm going to start to stir slightly more vigorously. It's looking good. So white chocolate ganache is always going to be an off-white. So if you're trying to get a perfect white drip, you will have to use a candy melt. But if you're going to be coloring it, any type of color, it works perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and keep stirring here. So our ganache is really coming together, but you can still see there are bits of white in here, and that's chocolate that is not fully melted. So we're going to need to heat this up 1 more time in the microwave. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this in now. So our ganache has now been heated for 3 intervals, 30 seconds, and as you can see, most of those chocolate bits that we saw earlier are melted. So we're going to go ahead and give this another stir, and then we're going to let it sit for a couple minutes just to really melt out any of those remaining bits of chocolate. So the ganache is very warm right now. It should be warm to the touch, and that's going to help melt away any of those extra bits of chocolate. Once all of the white chocolate has been fully melted, we're going to go ahead and add our gel food coloring. And a little bit goes a long way, so we're only going to add 1 or 2 drops. I'm going to be coloring this ganache light pink today for an Easter cake that I'm making, but again, any gel food coloring works. And you don't have to worry about white chocolate ganache seizing up like regular white chocolate would, because the heavy cream in there helps keep it from seizing. Now that we've let this sit, we're going to go ahead and stir it and make sure there's no more bits of white chocolate that are unmelted. So it looks very smooth. This is perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and add in our gel food coloring. So I want this to be a light shade of pink, so I'm just going to add a single drop of gel food coloring here. And remember, when adding gel food coloring, you can always add more, but you can never take back what you've already added. So always add a little bit and then work your way towards the shade that you're after. So we're just gonna go ahead and gently stir this around, and we're getting that beautiful shade of light pink that I'm after. So now that our ganache is fully mixed and colored, I'm going to go ahead and let this cool to room temperature before I add it to a cake. Because at this temperature, it's way too warm and it would just run all over the place. The other tip that I have for you is some people like to add a ganache by just spooning it onto their cake, but I really enjoy putting it in a plastic squirt bottle, and these can be found on Amazon or even at Walmart or Target. They're really cheap and they make the process so much easier. Also, if you have any leftovers, it's super easy storage in your fridge. You can leave the ganache in your fridge for up to 2 weeks. So I highly recommend adding it into a squirt bottle once you're done and using that to apply it to the cake. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, be sure to click the like and subscribe button below. And if you want to see more of my cakes or the cake that I'm going to use this ganache on, you can check out my Instagram at Chelsweets. The recipe for this white chocolate ganache is also up on Chelsweets.com. So thanks so much for joining me today. Hopefully I'll see you guys again soon.